Good morning.
Hello, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello. Okay, we can give 1 minute more for all people joining. We are 30 so far. I see there are also some AI note taker, as even as many as people on the call. Hello, Basilis. Good morning. Would you like to have a first word to the attendees, Basilis?
Morning.
Hello, good morning, Elena. Okay, so we are 31 participants so far, so I think we can start. First of all, thank you so much for being here. This is the first session for the growth services, which is going to consist on the 6 different webinars. You know, this session is already being recorded. We will ask all the participants to be mute and to post your question into the chat. Then once we finish, we can open your cameras and your microphones and to have a quick chat with you to solve your doubts and to attend all your questions. And okay, let's start with the agenda. First of all, I'm going to introduce to the growth service. Then my colleague Elena Lopez is going to provide you with some keys for adoption. Then at the end, we are going to have the Q&A session. And last but not least, we are going to explain a little bit on the next growth service webinar, which is going to take place on January. Okay, so let's start with this introduction to the growth service. Why to have this growth service within InnoMatch? Well, as you know, we have 2 different participants in our project. In the one side, we have the demanders, the buyer organizations, and in the other side, we have the suppliers, the EAC awardees. Our aim is to support the development of a commercialization strategy for the EAC awardees and to support the buyers to have the adoption of a solution after InnoMatch. This does not mean necessarily that it has to be a direct acquisition of the solution you are piloting under InnoMatch, but this project can help you to have different insights in order to know better what you need and what you want after the project. Decision dynamics are going to be provided during this 12 months of the InnoMatch program. As you have already individual mentoring sessions with your mentor, they are going to treat you topics as the pilot status, as well as the adoption and commercialization strategies. And then in this mentoring session, you are discussing how your adoption and commercialization challenge can be progressing every month with your mentor. Then for these group sessions, the dynamic space is to have a collective learning and collaboration among all the attendees. These are designed to foster mutual understanding, peer support among us, and to have a shared session of progress. As said, every 2 or 3 months, we are going to have these sessions, and each of you are more than welcome to explain how these are going progressing. The idea is to have the session schedule, and we are going to provide you information 2 weeks in advance about each of the webinars. And we would like to encourage you all to be active participants. What are the benefits for the EC awardees? As mentioned before, we are going to have peer exchange. You are going to be able to observe the different approaches from the different companies, and you could see and identify the different gaps from them or your own. Then you are going to be able to access to different opportunities and get to know existing initiatives to support your business development and growth. As well, you are going to be able to have open dialogue, and this is going to be a safe space for explore expectations, constraints, and strategies for your commercialization journey. The benefits from the buyers would be to learn from other buyers and to be inspired and to have an adopted innovation. Then to foster internal understanding and discuss your operational realities is in future for implementation. And last but not least, to also deploy strategies and be prepared to create your own adoption strategy and to get to know existing instruments. The planning for the upcoming sessions here today on the 14th of November, we have this one, Why Adoption Matters. Then in January, we are going to have buyers success experiences for all the buyers here to be inspired and created on the different obstacles found by other buyers and good practices that led them to have adopted a solution. Then on February, we are going to introduce you to different EAC business acceleration services for the EAC awardees. In March or April, we are going to provide you with go-to-market strategies and internationalization. In May, EAC awardees will be invited to explain their successful commercialization stories. And last but not least, in June, we are going to have a joint webinar with both the EAC awardees and buyers to know how to make it happen after the pilot, how to go from a pilot agreement to a long-term contract. Now I would like to give the floor to my colleague, Elena Lopez, who is going to explain you some different keys for adoption. Thank you, and that's all from my side.
Thank you so much, Carlos, and thank you everyone who connected today. We see we are a bunch of people, plus we also had other related InnoMatch meetings, so thank you very much for being here. We truly believe that the topic is important. Before I start, I would like to give the floor to our innovation procurement advisor from the EIC, Vasilis Sanidis, who has been really the one pushing for this program within the EIC for the benefit of EIC companies to make sure that you commercialize your solutions and bring them to the market. So, Vasilis, I leave you the floor for some intro words.
Thank you, Elena. I will be very brief. Actually, I'm delighted to be here in this workshop today to talk about why adoption matters. And I'm sure that all of you have seen the recent startup and scale-up strategy that actually highlights the importance of innovation procurement. Why does this key document highlight the importance of innovation procurement? Because actually, because adoption matters. That's why it is really important to be to find a way and to commercialize the very important results of R&D services, R&D that we have in Europe. And innovation procurement is one of the main instruments that supports this goal. We should not forget that the public sector spends almost 2 trillion euros per year through procurement. So it is the elephant in the room. And if we add on this figure the expenditure that is happening through private sector procurement, we understand that procurement in the public and the private sector are one of the key elements to support the commercialization, the adoption of the innovative solutions that are being developed in our continent. Having said that, I will, you all know that the EIC is paying specific attention on innovation procurement. That's why it has established since March 2024 a full program to support the mainstreaming of innovation procurement in our continent and for the benefit for EIC for the EIC innovators. In the context of this program, we have put in place activities that are enhancing the skills of innovators to participate as potential suppliers in tenders. This workshop is one of those activities to enhance the skills. However, we have others like the Innovation Procurement Academies that are starting on Monday. And if you haven't registered, if you are an EIC beneficiary, and if you haven't registered to the EIC Innovation Procurement Academies, please do so, because there are important sessions there to enhance your skills about innovation procurement. There are sessions talking about procurement in Europe, procurement of R&D services, even demos on how to search business opportunities through TED. And of course, there will be focus on procurements in other parts of the world. This time, particular focus is being placed on ASEAN markets. But there is also a toolkit. There are matchmakings to facilitate the contacts with public and private sector buyers, assistance to EIC beneficiaries to submit offers, assistance to public buyers to carry out innovation procurements, and last and certainly not least, the POCs, the proof of concepts and pilot tests that are happening through this very important project through InnoMatch that is supporting the mainstreaming of innovation procurement in our continent. Our goal, and since I'm talking to the EIC beneficiaries and public buyers, our goal through InnoMatch is not only to carry out this box. This box is our vehicle in order to be able to unlock to mainstream innovation procurement. So our aim is to encourage as many innovation procurements as possible to be born out of this procedure. So yeah, and these workshops are really important because they shed light on how to be able to move from actually proof of concept or pilot test demonstration to the actual deployment through procurement. So thank you very much again for participating in this workshop, for following the activities of the EIC Innovation Procurement Program, and in particularly the InnoMatch. And yeah, and we are here for any question that you may have, of course, with the colleagues from InnoMatch. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vasilis. I think that was a perfect introduction. It really sets the tone for what's coming next. Thanks once again. So I'll ask Carlos to pass to the next slide. But in a nutshell, this is a bit introductory, but it's what Vasilis just explained. We see too much successful innovation, too much successful pilots in Europe and in the whole world, but especially in Europe, that is where we are, right? That do not get adopted. Even if they demonstrate powerful benefits through those pilots, through those projects, we see that those are not deployed at scale. And this is a systemic problem that we have. And this is also why we are here in InnoMatch, right? To demonstrate the benefits of the solution, but then decide to adopt it if it was beneficial. Next slide, please. If we don't adopt those innovations, we are not unlocking the full impact. Actually, innovation is only innovation when it reaches the market, right? So we need to take the one step forward and really close that gap that we see systematically in the innovation system. Next slide, please. Because if we don't do it, it means it's a waste of money, not only from the ones who sponsor the R&D projects, but also from the ones who participated. It's also a waste of opportunity because here I think that the companies will understand me very well. When do you have the opportunity to work in a pilot with a strategic customer? It doesn't happen that often, and if it happens, sometimes it's costly. So if we don't make the most of opportunities like InnoMatch, where you are able to work hands-on with your customer, when are you gonna actually sell, right? So if we don't leverage it, it's a waste of opportunity. But even more importantly, or at least that's my opinion, it's a way of motivation and a culture killer. We know that the buyers, especially the public ones, are super busy with their duties and the services that they need to provide to the citizens. And if they participate in innovation, they try a solution that it's good for them, good for the citizens, for the patients, and it's not adopted, then the intrapreneur within the organization, the champion who has decided to participate in an innovation project for the benefit of the end users, then it's totally demotivated, because what's the point? What game are we playing if at the end of the day, if it works, it is not being implemented? So it's something that we really need to address. Next slide, please. So what can we do? The persons, the 37 people that are in this InnoMatch call. Next slide, please. You are probably thinking, or sometimes we feel that this is the case, that you are not the decision maker, you are not the budget allocator, you are not the contract writer, you are just the project manager who is leading the pilot. It may be the case, but you are also the entry point in the organization. You can enable, you can convince, and you can push your decision makers to take action already while you are piloting, because you are the one that is directly in touch with the solution, with the pilot, with defining what needs to be done. So let's say empower yourself. Do not underestimate what you can do, because the adoption journey starts with you, with those of you that are in this call today. Next slide. So now I'm gonna tell you our Christmas wish list, okay? Because Christmas is just around the corner. What would be our ideal adoption scenario in InnoMatch? Next slide, please. An ideal adoption scenario would be the following. In InnoMatch, the pilot is a success. The company really showcases the benefits of its solution, and the buyer totally gets that and decides to adopt it after InnoMatch. Then the relationship is so good that between the buyer and the EIC awardee, that the EIC awardee builds a reputation, because they've already worked with a strategic customer and makes it easier for them to knock on the door of other similar potential customers. Obviously, that takes a lot of time. We are not expecting it to happen, all of it, within InnoMatch, but it would be nice to see some signs already while we are in InnoMatch. Like, for instance, the buyer allocates the budget to make the purchase, or the budget starts doing market consultation prior to the procurement, or there's some initial efforts to prepare the contract. And for the companies, they start contacting new customer leads, start discovering new potential partnerships. Those are signs that adoption will happen, right? That would be our ideal scenario. My Christmas wish list, what I'm gonna ask Santa for Christmas. But we also know that this is not always possible, right? There are in-betweens. And if you can move on to the next slide, Carlos. So everything is not ideal, and we see how expectations meet reality. Next slide. So you may be wondering, what if the solution is not ready to be deployed at scale? this sometimes happen, right? The solution is not in TRL 9, it's not ready to be deployed at scale. Then think, is there a way to keep collaborating for improving it? Like, for instance, extending the pilot beyond InnoMatch? Are there other market-ready solutions? Meaning that what we want is the buyer to trigger the innovation adoption. It can be with the InnoMatch solution or not, but we want to create these opportunities. We want to see that those needs from the buyer are actually addressed through innovation. You may be also wondering, what if the decision makers do not see this as a priority? Talk to them as soon as possible. We are already in time. We've only spent 2 months out of the 12 of the program, and you still have time to understand the priorities. Even you could change, like if you understand after that the way that you plan the pilot is not exactly aligned with their priorities, that they want to see different KPIs, different benefits, you are still in time to pivot and make sure that through the pilot you demonstrate the benefits that they want to see, so that when the pilot is over, they see that it meets their interest and that the solution is relevant to be adopted. And the third question that is frequently asked is, what if there is no budget? Again, we have time to start securing it. We have 10 months ahead. So our final goal is to have impact. And for that impact to happen at the end of the project, we really need to start today. Next slide, please. And then a note, of course, on public buyers. As we know, public buyers need to comply with the public procurement regulations. Of course, they are there for a reason. So here I want to make you a few questions. Next slide, please, Carlos. So imagine the scenario whether the buyer wants to acquire the solution respecting the principles of public procurement. Next slide. So I have a question for you. Please write what you think in the chat. Is it compulsory that the buyer acquires the solution from the InnoMatch company? What do you think? Yes or no? Simply add it in the chat. I see the first question. Thanks. No, no. 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 Okay, perfect. Perfect. So I think we are all on the same page. The answer is indeed no. Please move on to the next slide, Carlos. It is not compulsory to acquire from the InnoMatch company. So that's their starting point. So that's why you really need to work on the opportunity to happen, just so that you are able to participate in that opportunity, in that tender. But be aware that any economic operator could become a solver of that opportunity. Next slide, please. Question number 2 is, because of the previous collaboration, then is the InnoMatch company automatically excluded from that tender? So same procedure, please write in the chat yes or no. What do you think? Perfect. We are all in the same page. The answer is indeed no. The company is not automatically excluded, as long, of course, that this is done in a transparent way. For instance, the InnoMatch company should not or must not participate in the definition of the tender requirements, so it must be treated as any economic operator that would participate in the tender. So also have this in mind, because the public buyer always needs to respect the public procurement principles like equal treatment, transparency, fairness, etc. Next slide, please. So the question number 3 is, what could be then the suitable instrument to be used, especially after a solution has been tested in InnoMatch? The answer, I will go for the answer directly, Carlos, is that your organization chooses the buyer organization. And if you don't know, maybe you need to consult in your internal procurement department or the unit in charge of deciding that. It may be also the case that that department does not know or is not so aware on how to adopt innovation, because indeed it's more difficult. It's not as simple as buying paper or buying staples, right? It requires a different kind of requirements. It requires a different kind of effort, but then you can get external assistance if needed. And luckily, there are many resources nowadays. So if you go to the next slide, Carlos, I want to mention 3 specifically important for the innovation procurement program of the EIC. The first one is in InnoMatch, we've created a guidance document explaining very briefly in a few pages which are the options. This is already available in the website. And Carlos, if you can, please add the link in the chat so that people can already access it. Then there's another important tool developed by the EIC directly. There is an innovation procurement toolkit that covers the whole spectrum of the procurement, whether it is research and development procurement or whether it is procurement that does not entail further R&D. There's even a module on private sector innovation. So these are super useful resources, super well prepared, and I encourage you to give it a look. But finally, and most importantly, we have a SPIN for EIC. It's also an initiative, part of the Innovation Procurement Program, and they are offering free assistance to public buyers who want to work on the instruments, the procedure that they're going to launch, etc. They have applications open. The colleagues can add the link to the chat. And we are considering even organizing a session with them just for you, for the InnoMatch buyers, so that you can get the most out of it and learn how to choose the appropriate instruments. These are legal experts, very well qualified, working in the innovation procurement sector for many years now. So it's really top quality, and we encourage you to have a look because you can really benefit. Next slide, please. But then I'd like to continue with another topic that is not legal related, but something that we think is also important when deciding for the adoption, and is setting the right governance for the adoption specifically. So now in InnoMatch, we have the pilot action plans for many of the solutions already in place, and there we fully trust you guys. We know it's going to be a success because you've created very nice plans with very well-defined tasks. You have extensive experience. You even managed to get an EIC grant that is super difficult. So we know that will be a success. But what we tend to see, not only here, but in all of the projects, is that not the same effort is devoted to defining the task that will lead to the adoption. So a specific task to start discussing the adoption process. And that's what my next slides will present. So you need to ask who will be responsible for what task, again, related just with the adoption, over the next months, and what resources will be allocated. So who will be responsible for what task over the next months, and what resources will be allocated. What do we mean by this? Next slide, please. Who? You need to think, who is the person in charge and accountable to make the adoption happen? For instance, is the project manager or the contact point for InnoMatch the one who will make the adoption happen, or is it someone else? As we were saying in the beginning, sometimes for obvious reasons, we need to have a project manager leading the pilot, but then perhaps the one who really can make the adoption happen is the business developer of the company. And for the buyer, perhaps it's the innovation unit who is participating in the pilot, but it's someone else who actually can make the adoption decision happen. So try to consider this for your specific case, because it's super important to lay the foundation now and not wait until the end of the pilot. Second question would be, who gives permission on or empowers that person? The CEO, the head of the department? Who is that important decision maker, or who can help that decision maker to make a decision? And the third one is, who provides the necessary resources on time? For instance, this is super, we see this very often in public buyers, that they need to plan their budget with 1 year in advance. And if you don't manage to secure the budget for the procurement, you will need to wait to the next year until that budget is secure. So now that we are at the end of the year, it may be the perfect timing to secure budget for the next year to purchase this kind of solutions. That's for the who. Now let's move on to the what. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So on what resources you need to think first, what would be the price tag for that future contract or procurement? And here, the InnoMatch company can provide an estimate because they have experience, they are selling already their solution elsewhere. So ask them to understand what would be a reasonable budget. Second, you also need to think what is the value exchange. You need to figure out not only the price, but also other aspects like how will the intellectual property rights be divided? Do you need some kind of visibility being provided from the company to you? Do you need any maintenance, especially for digital solutions that, as you know, you are not only buying the solution, but only its maintenance for the future years? What will happen with new releases? Do you need to adopt those separately? Will they be included in the contract? All those things need to be discussed in advance. And finally, as we were saying, what is the adoption instrument? Will it be an open or a closed procedure? Will it be R&D procurement or non-R&D procurement? And for that is, well, the reason why we are offering you this guidance documentation and this SPIN for EIC assistance. Next slide. So finally, just to like a final, let's say, motivating message, we know that this is the most challenging part. It's the more difficult, more than the pilot. As we were saying, we fully trust that your pilots will be a success, but what is difficult is to get the adoption. And for that, the anticipation is key. We need to start working on it from now, directly. So thank you very much for your attention. And now I would like to keep it a bit more interactive with some questions and answers. And for that, we have a Mentimeter. Only 2 questions. It won't be very complex, but I kindly ask you to join Menti so that we can proceed with it. You can either scan the QR code or enter www.menti.com and enter the code that is in the slide. We will leave you some minutes for that, and then we will move on to with the questions. I know it's a Friday. I know you are tired, but I promise it will be interesting, I think. Thanks so much, Carlos. Okay, so let's move on to the first question. That would be, what are the barriers to adoption that you foresee? Okay, I've given my speech here, very motivational, but you are the ones who are on the ground. What do you think could be barriers to adoption of a solution based on the experience that you have? Okay, I see one, lack of focus. Thanks for that. Not meeting the expected KPIs. Finding the right person who will finally make the decision. Indeed, in big organizations and especially in public ones, there are many decision makers indeed, and there are different interests. So you really need to map the stakeholders to know who is having a say, because sometimes we think it's a person, but then you realize that, yeah, it is not, or there are more persons involved on that decision. Okay. If take requirements do not meet fully. On that, my impression, but also feel free to jump in, is that not really, in the sense that, wait, it disappeared. Oh, they were a group. Okay, super nice. New feature from Menti. Let's say that the tech requirements depends on the kind of solution, of course, but I don't know. I'm quite confident that those will be met. Perhaps the trickiest ones could be the ones that that deal with the business part. Like, are there any cost savings? Are there more satisfactions for the end users? What's like the business case for the solution? Because technically, I don't know, perhaps I'm too confident about you guys, but I think those will be somehow met. Okay, more answers deal with the budget. Maybe if you can click that one. Yeah, budget allocation from buyer, and lack of planned budget or not prioritized for the solution acquisition. Indeed, that's why we need to start asking about this as soon as possible, because it will take time. And if you reach the end and it has not been secured, the problem is that you stop the collaboration, and then it's much more difficult to resume it again than to simply jump from the pilot to the tender. So fully agree with that one. Okay, finding time and willingness, lack of budget at the right moment, lack of public procurement flexibility. On that, I understand your concern is not as easy as with private buyers, but there are now many mechanisms to procure innovation, and we count with the legal assistance of the Spin for EIC colleagues. So I feel like we can find the way to make it possible. Okay. May I mention as well that these kinds of topic must also, or we should try to find some time to discuss them with the mentors. As you know, we have Anya as a mentor, Carlos and I, and also Aline in InnoMatch. So please make sure that during the meetings you also bring up these topics if you have made any progress, because we are here for the whole thing, as we were saying in the beginning, not just for the pilot, but also to start discussing the adoption. So just a heads up, because I think it's in human nature, we all tend to go for what's short term, what's the pilot, the KPIs, the deliverables, etc. But try also to find some time to discuss this during the meetings. Okay, then thanks so much. Let's move on to the next question. What can be done during InnoMatch to maximize chances of adoption? So you've already identified what could be the barriers. So now, what do you think you could do to overcome those barriers, to maximize the possibilities that there's an adoption? It's not 100% sure, we will never know, but as we were saying in the beginning, there are small steps we can take to make that adoption happen. What do you think you could do? I know this is a more difficult one, but give it a try.
Don't be shy, as the answers are anonymized, so you can feel free and confident.
Okay, thanks so much for the first answers. So early planning and ask for mentor support. Indeed, we are here for that. So please ping us. We are happy to discuss this anytime. Then regular communication with the buyers and involvement. Indeed, that's the most important. This is something that we always discuss in the meetings with our mentees, that the meetings with us are not so important as maintaining a smooth and frequent communication with your buyer. That's why we are here for. So then communicate with adopters as often as possible. Indeed. Do more disseminations of evidence as possible. That's a very good one. So try to put it in a way that it's not that you are just trying to sell, which indeed that's why you are here for, the companies, to sell. But if you bring the business case, if you bring the evidence that it's a win-win, that it's also beneficial for the buyer, then your credibility increases. So the more you can base your sales statements into proven benefits for the organization, the better. That's why we have this kind of initiative of InnoMatch, to demonstrate the benefits before making the procurement decision. Okay, a new one. Better understand the procurement process of the buyer, decision makers, budget planning, stakeholder mapping. Indeed, because it's very different to how for instance, private company would procure. But even for private companies, those that are very big corporations, they also have very different processes, and they might be slow. So you need to devote time to understand and map the decision makers. Okay, so first, test results early enough. Indeed. Ensure that the awards meet the expectations of the buyer from the very beginning. Indeed. Please leverage the opportunity. You are not in an initiative with a buyer anytime. This is not frequent at all. So now that you have the chance, really make the most of it. Then present the tools already provided to find the best instrument for the buyer. Perfect. Clarify pricing and expectations on ordering early. I really like this one because, sometimes when we are in innovation projects, we tend to ask for a lot of requirements, a lot of functionality. Yes, and then I want the solution to this and that. So that, let's say that also has a cost, right? Not in the project, because we are funded by our sponsor, that is the EIC. But then when you want to market that solution, the cost of the solution is very high because you've been like a monster, right? And then you may find that the customers have a much lower budget to procure it. So when, adapting the solution to the requirements of the buyer, be aware of the price tag for the purchase of that solution. Because if it doesn't match the requirements that are being created in the project, maybe it's not worth it to develop so many nice functionalities that at the end of the day, nobody can pay for. So try to stay realistic on that, because it's also a way to smooth the adoption process. And then involve the possible decisors during the pilot. Indeed, do not wait until the end. This is something that we see a lot, because obviously those are the big guys. You don't want to bother them with a small project if you don't know if it's gonna show results. While I totally get that, it's also important to be agile and to involve them early, so that if they want to see some specific information, want to have a specific say on something on the solution or of the pilot, you have time to consider it. Because if you go to the end and they say, well, this data is nice, but what I really wanted to see were, I don't know, the cost savings compared to the way we are solving now this problem. Then you will be totally out of the business, because you have not time, you will not have time to consider that feedback. So make sure that you involve them as early as possible. Okay, so that's it. Thank you very much for your answers and your engagement. We are 10 minutes away from the end of the session, so we just want to thank you for your time. This was just the introductory session. There will be more, as Carlos explained in the beginning. Some of them will be especially focused to the EIC companies, so more on the business support services that you can benefit from, how to create your go-to-market strategy, etc. But we will also have sessions for the buyers, like other buyers' experiences who have already adopted innovation, sessions on the different instruments that you can choose to procure the solutions, etc. We will try to keep it short and sweet, because we know that you are busy people, and we are here to support you any way we can.